Hi, and welcome to The Building People, the show where we spotlight the career journeys and hard-won lessons of the people who keep Britain's buildings running. I'm Paul McCorkadale, I'm CEO at GridEdge, and today I'm joined by Chris Reid, Managing Director at BMSI. Chris has spent nearly 30 years in the building management systems world, starting as an apprentice under the mentors who shaped him through senior roles at Eon Controls and Mighty before the MDC at BMSI. Under his leadership, BMSI has grown to a national team of 175 plus engineers, and the E60 Intelligent Optimization Program, built in partnership with us and also a bigger FM, has just landed 3 award finalist nominations. This is known in the industry for his conviction to making things better and building strong teams and trust. Long-term success takes care of its success. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here.
Great to have you. And yeah, it's been a little while since we've caught up, so I'm looking forward to the chat and hearing more about where things are at for you, Chris. But I suppose we'd really start off for our listeners is, I suppose, giving a little bit more about you and your background. So we're going to deep dive a little bit by starting at the beginning. Could you give us a sort of highlight reel of your life, from childhood, kind of working through? How did you end up in this world all the way through to how you're sitting here today? What was the interest? Why did you end up in it? What does that look like? Here's a bit of flavor, Chris.
Yeah, so been around controls for, one of my team reminded me the other day, for 30 years now in April. I started very young at 15. My dad had his own BMS business. So he'd been in controls his entire working career from in Scotland initially with my guy controls as a draftsman, and then he came down to England and took me and my mum with us, and then my 2 other brothers were born. So I'm proud to say I'm a true Scotsman, whereas my brothers rely on my dad for that link. And he had a career at Barber Coleman, which then became CB, which then became Invensys, and at that time, he decided to start his own business with 2 other gentlemen called Pete Malley and Martin Brooker, and they formed Integrated Control Systems in 1992 and became the first systems house for CB. So from 12 years old, I was kind of pulled into tons of drawings on the dining room table, dad working all hours, always on a Saturday as well in the office. I think in April 1995, they had a huge project for Bishopsgate Shopping Centre, I think it was.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, masses of panels needed.
Yeah.
And pressure like there still is today. After much persuasion, I went into the office during the Easter holidays and started cutting cables. That was my job.
Wow.
The panel shop manager, a chap called Paul, I think, gave me a length of cable and said, copy this until you run out of drum. And I did that, and I must show some intelligence or ability, because I was then allowed to put numbers on the cables. Hundreds of cables, number ferrules. Yeah, so it was 15 really, and I enjoyed it. It was more fun than doing a 6 a.m. paper round. So I started working Saturday mornings up there at 15. Great, just what a great introduction to work. These guys, industrial language, great banter, camaraderie, real hard work, making tea for 30 plus people, being the lad, going to do the breakfast run. And that's pressure. That is pressure, making sure everybody gets the right food. You don't lose anyone's money. Yeah. that was my introduction to it, and I never probably thought at 15 I would end up being in controls. I just saw it as a Saturday job. I actually had desire and aspiration to be an aircraft engineer, and
right, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately when it got to GCSE time, I got through the first 2 selections for British Airways, but didn't make the third one. And to be fair, once I started at college doing mechanical engineering, I realised actually that side of engineering wasn't for me. I was far more interested in the electronic piece, and studied that at college while still working at ICS on almost becoming day relief. I'd moved from the panel shop into the applications department, so I was creating graphical supervisors. This is well before Trend 963. It was like Trend 945, I think I started working on, and a product called Altavist, which was an Invensys product, American, really complex, which I like to say I became the master of. Self-proclaimed, obviously. And yeah, I worked part-time in all the school holidays. I think I became part of the actual applications team. I would be working on projects at weekends as well. And towards the end of my college time, I said to my dad, I'm really keen to join the business. I enjoy it. I like the team. I like the people that are there. I enjoy working. And I never worked for my dad in my entire time at ICS. I was working for Pete Malley, who was a technical genius and really passionate guy, really, yeah, a lot of love for Pete. And they created an apprenticeship for me. So I started in August 1999. Really good apprenticeship, well structured. Got to see all the parts of the business, and at the end of that, I stayed in the applications department. Progressed. I was one of my biggest issues, I think, throughout my career is I always want to push on. I don't like. My daughter has that trait. I think I've mastered it. Right, what's next? What's next? And even if that was
Yeah,
like 6 months, I've mastered that. I've done that. What's next? I probably haven't mastered it. I've just got an understanding of it. So I became a field engineer, so commissioning and service on projects. Absolutely loved that. Worked on some really iconic buildings in the south of England. Probably the biggest one was the Vodafone head office down in Newbury. There's 7 buildings
yeah,
down there.
yeah.
I think I was the only engineer who did the first building all the way through to the end with a bit of churn in those days. I think I saw
Yeah.
2 European championships and 1 World Cup. It was quite a
I was going to say
journey down there.
it's a massive,
Huge,
yeah,
huge, complex design. And like all things, not always the builder to the occupier are aligned. So it was all chilled beam solution. And then the executives moved in and they wanted offices, and chilled beams are not best friends.
yeah. I'm laughing because I've seen a building similar with that, and you always end up, especially anybody new coming in, and goes, "Well, it should just work like this," and you're like,
Mm.
"Yeah, but do you know how they've designed this one?" So yeah, I get your challenge there, Chris.
Yeah, it was pretty advanced. Natural vent and
Okay,
under trench heating. Yeah, it was a really
yeah,
quite a complex building actually. Real good learning on some complex controls. And then from there, I was lucky enough to progress I was quite interested in the support side. Once that project had finished, I then became the static engineer on site. So I was on site engineer looking after the customer. And then that was kind of the journey into support. And then through people leaving the business and me being bullish, saying, give me the opportunity to be the support service manager. I was lucky enough to be given that opportunity, still working for Pete Malley and an industry legend called Mike Riley. We haven't got enough time on the show to talk about Mike, what he did for many people's careers in our
right.
sector. But yeah, he was a legend. Loved that guy. Absolutely loved that guy. Hilarious. Far too many fond memories. Some of them definitely not repeatable on a podcast. But he taught us all. There's lots of people in our industry to have Mike to thank for his technical knowledge. Pete for his crazy inventiveness. And ICS was sold to NG Bailey in 22 o'clock.
Right.
And I thought I'd be the first out the door, being the MD's son. Really did think that. But anybody who knows my dad, there was no silver spoon, there was no there was no simple life, no simple path. He told me from day one, you need to be exceptional because good will be seen as failing in the business because people will judge me harshly. And they did, but that gave me a great resilience.
Yeah.
Love to prove people wrong. And I think that set me up well for my career. But NG Bailey must have seen something in me because they invested in me. They put me on executive leadership training,
Okay.
Ashridge Business School.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah. So I was 27 and with all these directors and MDs across NG. Yeah, I'd never seen a P&L at that point. But yeah, that was brilliant. NG Bailey and ICS, most of the acquisitions in our industry, sometimes the synergies and the reasons why things are bought don't quite work out. I took the opportunity to try FM for a piece. So I joined Norland for 2 years. Just to see, just to try something different. I'd only done controls. At that point, what was I, 30 years old? And I'd only done controls in my entire career. So I did 2 years in the FM market, but then returned to BMS when Matrix, under the Green Sky PE house, joined Matrix as a regional manager. And yeah, I've been back in BMS since. Became regional director, the Southern director. Again, I felt I've reached typical Chris. I'd done 3 or 4 years in that role, and I was like, what's next? And there wasn't a natural path at Eon. So I had a little look around and I went to Mighty, a young lad. He's younger than me, so I call him a young lad. Jamie Hall was keen for me to come in there. And we had some great conversation because I didn't think they needed me. They kind of had a team in place, and, my level at that point, I felt probably as a snob, I was like, I don't think you need me. But he convinced me to come. We quickly realised he didn't need me. And I stayed a year there and real huge learning, massive business, Mighty, just ginormous. doing some good stuff, probably so big sometimes that connecting all the dots together is a challenge. And then I was really fortunate that Salter UK were looking for a new managing director. It was always an aspiration on the list of career goals, was to be a managing director, follow the footsteps of my dad. And I was lucky enough to be successful in that. And I went there and I had...
But that bit of good, like you say, is getting to that. I mean, the journey, and everybody talks about those journeys as if it's planned out, as if it's, you know, it's always like that. And the way you told your journey there, it isn't. And that's from, you know, a lot of the time, isn't it? It moves and it shifts, and sometimes you never think you're quite going to get there.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got there, and that's, you know, it's real credit to that focus and getting there to where, you know, over the years of moving around, getting up to the role we really wanted to get to in the long term.
Yeah, it was. I had a desire to do that by the time I was 40, and I managed to do it 3 months early. I tipped it was 39, and that was, you know, without doubt the most challenging role I've ever had. You know, Salter's a great business, especially, and in the UK business, some of the most intelligent, most experienced people I've ever come across. But I joined them in the February of 2020, and then obviously 5-6 weeks later, the entire world changed with COVID.
Perfect timing there.
And that was so much responsibility. You know, how do we keep the business going? How do we keep people employed? How do we keep them getting salaries? At that point in time, and they won't thank me for it, we were a little bit behind on technology in terms of there was no Microsoft Teams. They weren't using the Microsoft platform in reality, just because there was a group that uses a different email structure. There was no real home working policy. Everybody was office based across the UK.
Yeah.
So that was a real eye-opening time. But out the back of that, you know, the infrastructure was put in place for remote working. We stopped people traveling 2 hours to an office and back. Everyone got used to it. We still kept that productivity. And then we cleared that. And then there was a global product shortage. And as a manufacturer, that comes with challenges. So that was tough.
You know, say that's like, you never flung in we're flung in the deep end. Here, you got this new role that you've always wanted. And by the way, we're going to throw in the 4 big challenges of the world that's all hitting at the same time. But good luck, sort of thing. Off you go.
But it was I had a great time there. I learned so much, made loads of mistakes, as you should do when you're in that role.
Yeah.
As long as you don't repeat those mistakes, then you're developing as a leader, aren't you? I think the one thing, when I still talk to the guys, I think I brought that business into the UK in terms of exposure in the UK market. A lot of people are very insular. They were either Satchwell or Salter in the 80s and 90s, and the talent there was phenomenal. And I still touch base with a lot of the guys, and I wish them all really well. But our time came to a natural end, and I was really fortunate that BMSI were planning that next stage of their succession planning for the board. You know, John Axton, who I'd known John since my early 20s. There was multiple opportunities where we discussed potentially working together, and the timings or the roles didn't quite work. I spoke to John just after they'd done the management buyout in 2017. Again, where I was in my career, what they wanted, again, didn't align, but we've always touched base. And this time in 2024 worked. I was looking to step down, wanted a successor, and lucky enough they picked me. So I went into that business for a year as projects sales director, my first sales role. I don't normally tell everybody that one, but my first proper sales job. And to get to know the business, a great way of doing it. A year of just getting in, really getting deep into the detail, understanding how everything works. And then as I settled in, John gave me more and more responsibility. We had a really smooth transition in 2025. Supposed to be July, but John went away on a holiday and nobody rang him. So he said, I think we can go a bit earlier. So unofficially took over in the end of March, and it's been a whirlwind ever since.
Feels like that was like yesterday.
Feels like yesterday. Also feels about 10 years ago. Cannot talk highly enough of my fellow the people within BMSI. I did a presentation to a customer the other day, and they asked, one of the questions is, can you tell us the collective experience of the leadership in BMSI? And I was counting that were like 850 years, and they were like, so it's like a millennium. And I was like,
yeah,
okay,
wow,
yeah, wow, over 300 years of the board, and then 500 odd years of management experience, and just a really good business. You know, loads to improve on, and everyone's open to that. And we've gone on a really good journey. I'm just the guy at the top. Everyone else is doing all the real work, and they're rocking out records every month. record revenue last year, record profit. And that's not everything, but it's a good gauge. And one of the great pieces is our attrition rate. It is dropped. When I joined the business, it was around 19%. And now we're sitting at 7%. People are joining and staying, which is, I think that's the key matrix for me.
And that, I mean, you've got, I don't know the exact numbers, but you got a reasonably sized team, lots of engineers as well, which is, they've got being a tech background like yourself, there's a certain mindset in the way that you think, and things can be quite binary. But how do you hold on to, there's been a culture growing, and as you grow that business and you've come in and took over and you're trying to protect the original but evolve it, how do you go about doing that to not lose the real heart of the business along the way as well?
Yeah, we've been working really hard on culture, and culture is really difficult, I think. I don't think anybody's got a silver bullet. And that lovely word of culture, strategy for breakfast is so true. And I think if everyone's honest, we have different cultures in different regions because of the way and the style of our leaders. And we very much try and keep regional leadership or regional ownership. So, they are masters of their own destiny. But I think what we try to do is create a culture of openness and transparency at that senior leadership team. We meet far more regularly. We share, potentially sometimes overshare information with the team. And then from a communication standpoint, on our employee engagement survey, when I first joined, one of the negative scores was around how the business and leadership communicate. So we introduced stuff like Good News Friday, where we share the positives, whether it's a big order, a small order, someone's first order, celebrating long servants, celebrating good months, launching new benefits into the business. So we do that on the Good News Friday. We have bi-monthly, all BMS calls. We update people on topics. This year we've launched tech talks. So every other week, our BMS providers as such are talking about what their products are doing, because it's the engineers that they're the ones that put the equipment in. Yeah, and we just try to communicate and try and listen to feedback. We can't action everybody's wants. Where we see the value in that, we do that. But yeah, I think it's a good culture. I don't think anybody can sit and they've got a great culture, but I think we've got a good culture. As I was saying to you at the start of the call, we had our quarterly leadership meeting, and there was a good atmosphere that they're improving. It's nothing worse than just sitting up there and you talking for 2 days and getting nothing back. But we're starting to see that engagement. I use a phrase and people laugh at me now. It's like, it's a safe space. It's good to argue as long as it's not personal. And when we walk out the room, we could hug it out. I think it's good to argue. You don't want a room full of people just nodding along and not challenging, or nodding along and saying, I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to do what I want to do. So yeah, culture.
I think that piece that really focused on that piece there about it's communication, it's transparency, and you said safe space. That trust. That often when people try to do this, they focus on so many complicated things that they could do in the business. And actually, it's like any other relationship on the planet, is that honesty, that proactive comms, that not feeling like something's hidden or there's a hidden agenda going on, or it's the foundation of, if you don't get that right, nothing else. And I mean, how do you then, because you must have lots of different people in the business. There must be people who like to tell everybody everything, and there's people who, keep it all to themselves just because they're different characters. But how do you try and help everybody feel like they can be part of that? What do you do to try and get them engaged?
Yeah, so I try and be as contactable and reachable as possible. So I don't sit, I'm based down near London. I've got regional offices across the UK. It'd be very easy to just go to my Maidenhead office every day or go to a customerly meeting, but I try and go around the UK at least once a month. And some of the further northern regions I may do every other month, but and then when I'm visiting offices, I let everybody know I'm there and come and see me, come and talk to me. I do ask everyone to invite me to the Toolbox Talks, so our engineer meetings. Yeah. And again, just give them an hour or half an hour to vent, frustrate, ask questions. I try and answer an awkward question, which some of my regions are really good at. And I front up. I don't say, I can't answer everything there, but if I don't answer it, I'll give it back to them. I'll feed back to them at a later date. And I don't try and overcomplicate communication, because I don't understand complicated communication. I had a contract through the other day, and I genuinely had no idea what the person was talking to. And then the team explained in layman's terms. I was like, why can't it be in layman's terms in the document? I get that,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Yeah, I think if you're approachable and people feel they can talk to you, again, as long as it's always professional, that's the main thing. I think I'm one of the lucky few in our industry is I have done, or wrongly, most jobs, whether I was good at them or not good at them. I worked in the panel workshop. I did some installation work. I did engineering. I was a commissioning engineer. I was a commissioning manager, a service manager, regional manager,
yeah,
port director, and operations director, managing director, and even sales director for years.
yeah,
I generally feel I could do it. I think our world is very much Groundhog Day. The technology advances, but in reality, it's still inputs and outputs. So
yeah,
you can
yeah,
draw on that experience. And I think if someone asks for a problem and you can help them with drawing on, oh, that happened to me, such and such, I think that generally gives you a really good grounding with them. You're not just some guy who's been pulled in who knows how to run some P&Ls and put some fancy words and some strategy down.
yeah. You've got that relatability, like, isn't it? And it doesn't matter how expert you were in each of those roles, you're able to have that conversation of, I get what you're talking about. I understand it enough to relate to it.
Yeah, and I know the guys are better than me. I know our commissioning engineers are better than me. I know the integration guy far better than me, 100%. My regional managers are probably better regional managers than I was, but I want them to be better than me. I want everyone to be
Yeah,
awesome. My job, and I say to the board, we're the guardians. We're here to guide and shape it. We shouldn't be in the weeds telling people how to do their job. But we're here for advice. We're here to support people. They've got a problem. We should have the experience to help them out. But we shouldn't be sitting on top of people going, this is what you should be doing. This is what you should be billing. This is how you run a job, because that's their
yeah,
job. And if you do that
yeah,
to them, they then do that to their team. And then eventually everyone just gets pushed down. And all the talent that you potentially got is just suffocated. And the ones
yeah.
who are really ambitious will leave.
You've touched on it a little bit, and that honesty of, you said it earlier on about, not everything goes the way you want it to go. Things do go wrong and get things wrong. And you learn a lot along that way. I mean, we've all had those, I'm going to say Friday afternoons, 4:30, the call, the disaster, that for whatever reason, it always seems to happen on a Friday at some point in the
Yeah.
afternoon. I don't know why, but it does. I mean, is there one sort of lesson or something that stands out that you can maybe share with us about something you've learned and probably had learned it the hard way, but it really prepared you and made you realize that not everything does go to plan, and not everything is theory and textbook, which is often what people assume. Is you read the book, you put it in place, it's all just going to magically happen. But is there any sort of example you could share with us, Chris, on that sort of thing?
Yeah, too many to even go through. But look, I think one of my biggest lessons around even like the start entering into that leadership or management piece was my view was I always wanted to give the customer the right answer, the solution. So that actually meant I probably buried my head in my sand and ignored the customer, because I would see a problem come in, right, what's the solution? Work on it, work on it, work on it. And then maybe 2 days later, go back going, yeah, this is the solution, this has fixed it. In the meantime, they've rung my phone 6 times, they've emailed me 5 times. They're in a rage now because I'm not communicated whatsoever. So it doesn't actually matter that I've communicated the solution or fixed the solution, because I've left that person in a rage state for so long. So one of the biggest takeaways when one moves into management, I said, again, comes back to communication, knowledge. You can go back to the customer, like, acknowledge there's an issue here. I'm gonna target to get back to you in the next 12 hours, 24 hours with a solution. At least they've got some sort of communication that I always used to think I was doing the right thing by going, right, I'll go away and I'll fix that. I'll fix that.
Yeah.
Get it
Yeah, I'm
fixed.
busy. I'm busy fixing it, sort of thing. I'm doing the thing. Just leave me alone, sort of thing. I'm busy. I'll be
Yeah.
fixed by
Yes.
tomorrow.
Stop ringing me
Yeah,
10 times.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, if I just picked up the phone and gone, okay, yeah, right, yeah, I know you're under pressure. I know the customer's on to you. We've got a guy on his way to site. You think it's this, we think it's that. We'll get this. Yeah, we'll come back with the solutions. Yeah, and I put some. When I did all my leadership training, you learn all these great phrases that you think are really cool. And I remember pitching. I was working for a customer who was going through a massive transition. They were a big business, and they had acquired another very big business. So there's two cultures coming very much together. One company, everybody's in suits. The other company, people are walking around in cargo shorts. And I had to do a quarterly update on our services into that customer. And I did this big spiel about the change curve and how everybody's going through, you're storming and it was so awful. They all just stared at me going, what are you talking about? Because they had never heard it. Why is our supplier telling us about our culture and how we're going to help them take them through the journey and get them through into into perform stage. I was like, because I was just fresh off of this, and I was like, oh, and I
Yeah.
think I understand where you are. I'm going to tell you where you are. It was so bad. So my tip was that always understand your audience. Don't just
Yeah.
assume everybody, because we're talking there was directors in that level, like senior leadership across that business, and I just naturally assumed we've all done this course because I became a manager, and it was so bad, so bad.
I've done all the training. I'm ready to go, and I'm going to tell you all. And everybody's sitting there going, "What? What?"
And that really resonated from me from the rest of them. I never put that stuff up. I use those skills. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
whole Johari window, understanding people's weaknesses, but I never talk about it now. I don't put that up going, "Oh,
yeah,
we all need to do the Johari window exercise." You don't know what you don't know, or I know
yeah,
what I know, but I'm not telling you. I was like, take as much jargon out of life, and I think because that's how I react as well. Take the jargon out. Be human. Look people in the eye. Talk to them. Understand them. Yeah, because failure's great. You should never
yeah.
be scared of failure, should you? If you've got an idea, trying to launch a product, trying to launch a service, and it fails, okay, don't be scared of it.
The learning you just said there, though, in a way, it was a real positive. You came out of this learning all these bits. You came out really energized about what, the impact you could have. Now you've got all these tools. So that's a real positive bit. And then what's even more positive is you went straight into that scenario and realized very, very quickly what you shouldn't do on it. And I imagine if that hadn't happened, you'd have probably played it out gradually with bits and bobs and disrupted loads of different meetings or whatever. But you had it in that piece that probably was quite painful. I imagine they went, I'm not doing
Yeah.
that again.
Yeah, it's that adjustability, isn't it? That's what you learn. Again, one of the leadership calls I did, they were teaching, styles. Chris, you're very quiet, and I was like, well, because I'm trying to absorb it, and you wouldn't know it now, but you're trying to absorb it back in, and they're like, next meeting be really like be on the front foot. So I was all on the front
Yeah.
foot, and my Pete Malley actually took me aside. I was like, you were so aggressive in that meeting. Why? Well, I did this course and they told me that next meeting, get in there. And it didn't
Yeah.
need it. So it's learning that balance. There's times to reflect, isn't there? And there's times to lead. And, I'm not shy now, obviously, people know me,
Yeah.
I love the sound of my voice. But
But it is
yeah,
that
that,
funny bit, and people will assume that will be, now people assume, well, that's where Chris is all the time. They might see you in a certain scenario, and some of those scenarios will be your natural place. But I'm sure there's lots of scenarios you're in that you've learned how to be in those places, and people will assume you just know it and you're magic and that's what you do. They don't realize the hard graft of your career, probably, of how you got there.
yeah, it's never like standing up at the leadership. We did our conference at the start of the year and there was maybe 70 of us in a room.
Hmm.
And I was really, but normally I can go out and I'm okay. And then standing in front of those people, tongue tied, none of the scripting I'd written out. We were launching a strategy where we want to go this year. I'd written it all out. I wanted to learn it, and I enjoy freewheeling. Yeah, that's me. But I wanted some key messaging to get across. I didn't want to just go off on a little tangent and then come back. And I just could not get the information to sit in my head. It just could not get it through. And then I started reading from the script because I was desperate, and people just so you don't. People just assume because you're a leader in a business that standing in front of people and talking is really easy. And I'm very handsy as well. I've just noticed that my hands are going everywhere. Yeah. Just because if you're a managing director in any business, I think some of your engineers and your people will assume that you're comfortable being in that
Mm,
public and being that person standing in front of everybody. 9 times out of 10, I generally am, but sometimes there is still a little talk to yourself saying, right, I call it MD mode now. Let's flick MD mode on and let's talk and take people on a journey.
yeah. I love that honesty you're talking about there, Chris. I had it early in the year and I had some of our team with me at an event. And I came back and they went, well, who have you met now? And I was like, what do you mean, who have I met now? Look, we know you disappear, you talk to everybody, you just go and speak to people, you just do it. And they were going, you do it naturally, was the word they said. And I went, hold a minute there. You think I naturally go into these big events and I walk around and I'll talk to everybody just like that. And that's what I do. And I said, no, no, no. This is learned over years of doing this. I've learned ways to do it. I've learned how to do that. And I wanted them to be aware of that because I didn't want them thinking that somehow magically I just had this natural trait that worked. I want them to know that if that's what you should do, you will get there. It just takes time. But like you
Yeah.
just said, it's people assume. They assume you just do that everywhere you go. Oh, you just magically go on a stage with a mic on and it's all fine. Nah.
And you're right. And I've been trying to get, I've got some great fellow directors, and some of them are new to the board role, and it's about raising that. I said it's about raising your profile, being that industry part of known as an industry leader, or in our business, be comfortable, go see people,
Yeah.
that elevation out of the weeds, trust the team to do their job and be seen as that leader. And they've all come on so well. Yeah, we've got some very experienced people in my board. It's not there,
Yeah. Yeah.
those guys, but you got to be brave. You got to try stuff. The talent mapping was really quite an experience we've been going through, because everybody wants to be a director, in my view. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks they want to be a director.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things about being a director or a leader of a business is when if the problems or the issues come in, if you're leading a business, you fix it. There isn't
Mm.
anywhere else to go.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, if you're just, oh, these are all the problems, okay, but you're the director of that part of the business. Okay, it's down to you to fix. So when you do step up from whether it's a regional manager or regional director into owning the full P&L, owning part of that business, I think that's one of the challenges that people don't really think of, is that it's you now. You are, for all the people that have been coming, you always going to your director. You're the director now. When you want to step up, it's not just about having the director title. It's that ownership of the problem, and that's the negative side of it. Obviously, the plus side of it is you get to shape businesses, and that's
Yeah.
strategic thinking.
The piece is it stops there, and that's a bit that people often see the positives. That's usually what they see, because whoever they've seen do that will probably head a lot of the challenge stuff
Yeah,
away, just get on with it. But you're right, and I mean, your business now. I mean, where it's at, and the E60 piece that you're doing, that the three BCI award stuff. There's pieces there, but you're sitting in that world where you've seen over the years that it's trying to get more. I'm going to say the word intelligent, smart, or whatever, but it's trying to be using technology in the right way to actually make an intelligent building optimize and deliver real outcomes. It's not just theory. I mean, there's loads of practice. How do you actually implement it? How do you actually make it reality? I mean,
yeah,
what do you see in your world of where it's going and how you actually make a building? I'm going to say the building smarter. It's probably the wrong term, but you get what I mean. How do
yeah.
you get to that? And what are you guys doing?
I think we're at a really interesting point in our industry, like the building construction, building sector, whatever we want to call it, point in time. We're at a tipping point, I think, where it's going to either explode into greatness, or we will continue to do what we've been doing for the last, I think, 10 years. Energy optimization isn't a new phrase. Certainly in my world, I started off in BMS, then I moved into BEMS, and the E was environmental. So it was all about comfort. Someone wants it hot, someone wants it cold, fine. And then it became building energy management systems, which it's known as today, where we had a little period where we just froze everybody in the winter and boiled everybody in the summer because we were making energy savings. And then smartness came into it. It needs to be smart ready, smart buildings. But as I said earlier, the reality of the inputs and the outputs haven't changed. The controllers look slicker. They got more powerful. But everybody wants to have an optimized building, wants to do stuff. But you need key elements. You need engagement from the customer to roll it out. You need the technology that works. There's lots of technologies out in that sector. IoT is a dangerous word. It's very easy to come into it, very easy to have a great dashboard and sell a solution. And then you need somebody who can implement it. And that's why I think the E60 is great. We've got a mutual customer who is engaged. They want to make a difference. We've got a product in E60 that works. And where we hopefully come in is we've got the intelligence and the understanding and the technical knowledge to implement the outputs that the system is telling us to do. And that's why we're making change. I've been involved in other projects where we roll out a product, customer isn't really engaged in it in terms of like at the site level. So potentially gets switched off or gets ignored, or the changes that we implement get overridden. And then you're sitting, people get at that level, and then you sit at the C-suite level and they're saying, well, I'm not getting the return of investment. My energy consumption isn't reducing. My energy consumption is going up. And you're like, wow. And then where we sit sometimes in that commercial chain, it's a very awkward conversation, because we know that's because the product's been turned off or the product's been overridden, or when we put forward a page full of opportunities to do significant savings with return on investment, they've just been ignored. So the key, I think we've done some great work with customers over the years, both at BMSI and our prior life. I think the E61 is one of those ones where I'm really proud of. And I'm selfish. I've only been really involved in the last 18 months of it, but I get it. And I think having a customer who truly gets it is the absolute game changer. Worked in retail when I was at Eon, and we had some customers who were really, really driven by it. And that drove change. It drove great opportunity. We're in a marketplace where our customers, our general customers, they're bringing out their own solutions, their own opportunity. But I think the place is still with the BMS people, the smart people, because we do understand the software and the building performance and how it actually comes together. That's why our industry is nearly £1 billion. We've got that intelligence. Trust us.
Yeah, I think you've just hit the nail on the head there, and the piece that is there is This isn't about, technology solving the problems on its own. This is about technology, expertise, relationships, and the chain of what needs to be done to make things happen. It's what you see, and too often you see, well, technology is just going to answer all the questions. And no, it's not. It's going to assist you to do that. It's not going to solve the whole problem. And then people blame the tech, and you've seen it over the years of lots of different tech coming along and working in that space and doing that. But you've been very vocal about I've got to say skills gap. I'm saying the UK, but I'm sure it's wider than that. What's the one thing that you would say to, not necessarily governments or whatever, but maybe businesses like yours? What would it be around what can be done? What needs to happen around this? Because you talk about it a lot around, the gap around I'm going to say BMS, building management system, expertise and understanding these complexities is becoming rarer and rarer to get those people. What do you think needs to be done? How do we do something different that helps people? And what are you guys doing on it?
Yeah, great timing, because we literally talked about talent and apprenticeships, T-level apprenticeships, graduate schemes and degree apprenticeships the other day. And I think alienating all of my brothers and sisters in the industry, we've got to stop talking. It's action time now. I think the BCIA is doing a great job, but I think everybody, if you want to be a member of the BCIA, I think you need to invest, you have to have apprentices, and whether that's scaled on your turnover, the size of your business. It's too easy for us all to go and look for the perfect engineer and just take an engineer from another company, offer them a few more £1,000. All that does is continuously year on year increase our cost base, which doesn't correlate to what we charge to our customers. So I think we all need to step up. We're committed to 10 apprentices, whether that's 10 every year or 10 every other year, because what we don't want is having young engineers who aren't getting the time and the experience because everybody's too busy. So we all need to step up. We've got phenomenal experience across the sector that is now thinking about retirement. Without a younger generation, enough of the younger generation learning from them, we'll lose that knowledge forever. If we don't act now, that's gone. And then what do we do? Yeah, AI and algorithms and analytics will definitely support, but certainly the growth aspirations we have at BMSI, we're not looking to take engineers away, reduce our engineering headcount. We want our skilled engineers to do more than they're doing now, because we'll use AI to do the mundane or the simplistic tasks, and the customer actually will get far more value from that. And we'll be able to do more remote checks or auto checks than we've ever done before, and we'll be able to share that with them, and then our engineer will go to site and do optimization or fix solutions, install new bits of equipment. So the customer's going to get a lot more, but we all need to be brave on that journey. But the biggest everyone's got to bring people through, and you'll find unbelievable talent. The old pathway is still there. Electrician to controls engineer, 100% get that. But mechanical graduates, electrical graduates, it's an untapped field. And there's a report out. Young people can't get work in the UK. We're crying out for engineers. So we just got to get on that journey. If I speak to all my regional managers, I can recruit you somebody. They'll want them to be able to do 5 systems. Be able to do panel mods, graphics, the whole shebang. But actually, if we go and take a mechanical or electrical graduate and invest in a 6 to 9 month fast track program, we'll see the return. And the experience of that is at Souter. The service support director, Paul Herbert, that was his go-to route. And it was unbelievably successful. And the Souter product is a complex product, so not degrading trend and everything else, but the software is pretty far more easier to use and understand. So if we all invest in those people, retraining, reskilling, that's in. Where's the next MDs? Where are the next sales guys? Where's the next great project manager? Because everybody and there's a huge place for the older engineers. They're unbelievably valuable, but everybody's aged out. The average age of every industry, I would be really surprised if it was sub 35.
Yeah, you've got that part that you come through of where those engineers are going to come from, how they're going to get into the industry. And what's really exciting about this industry is that actually the need for more control in the buildings for everything that everybody has to do is increasing. So every year BMS deployments are increasing by a reasonable good rate. The need is, we've got a need today and the need's going to grow. It's not going to go smaller. And the fact, the way you talk about it, because our teams love the bit of engaging with the engineers. And we often, because we're a tech company, get seen to be, oh, you're going to take my job away from me, or you're going to do this. And you kind of we definitely don't want to, because the bit we want to do is work with the engineers. We want to work with these people that really understand the context and how these buildings are and the reality of it. And that's where the two come together. But we want to free them up, like you're saying, free them up to do the stuff they really like doing, because there is stuff that a machine can do if you work together with it. But equally, there's loads of things that you need the experience, you need the understanding to do that. And I don't think that will change anytime soon.
And the buildings have something. So BMS is a part of the building. So the traditional BMS system is a part of the building now. It's the power, it's the networks, it's the AV system, it's the energy optimization package, which is a separate entity. Yeah, it's not. The BMS is a part of that, but there's products like Grid Edge and others that are doing that energy optimization, and it's in its own sector in its own right. It's exciting. I generally love our industry. Pick an iconic building in the world, and it's got a BMS system in it. It's got intelligence
Yeah,
in it. That's
yeah,
not, you don't get that anywhere in every other sector. And the question I asked all my team on Tuesday was, who gave you your start? Who took the gamble, or who saw the opportunity, who saw the potential? And we went through that, and there's some great stories. And it's like, okay, but do you not want someone to talk about you in that same way in 15, 20 years' time? So hopefully that resonated, because that's what I'm really passionate. Pete Malley was, obviously, he was my dad's partner as well. So, I had a really close relationship with Pete. We were honest. We had some ups and downs. My personality and his personality. Unbelievable respect for him. Mike Riley. Harold Peacock was the first real guy who knew he got me. He knew I needed to be challenged. So he would challenge me. He would create crazy roles for me in the business and push me. And then there's tons. So Neil Sims, the most organized person I've ever met in my life. Just incredibly detailed. What gets measured gets done was his mantra, and learned a lot from him. Mark Lynch at Salter, he knew just the way he acted and the way he presented himself was inspiring. And you never stop learning from these people. And even now at BMSI, John Axton, what a guy. He sees our industry in a completely different lens to me, which is great. So I'm off. I'm going. Let's go, go, go. And he's great. He was just great at seeing it. And I'm really lucky that I have mentor days of him where he brings me back. He keeps me grounded, which is
yeah.
superb. But
You still
keeps
connecting with
banking us.
John then, do you? You still connecting with John, yeah?
Yeah, still connect
Brilliant.
with John. Yeah, he's not exec, but yeah, we do that. And Bob Savage and Steve Dalton, two titans of our industry in terms of like buy and build and becoming the aspiration and spending time with them. It's been great. They're just, again, very forthright guys, but they've been there, they've done that. So when you think of something or you have any sort of doubts, I just go to them and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, that'll work. We
Yeah,
trust you. So, yeah, and I want to have that on all my managers, and I want to have that. I want someone to talk about as fondly about me as I do about Mike Riley and I'm a dad, what a guy he was in our industry, the amount of managing directors, company owners, procurement directors, lead consultants, global consultants that all started with this systems house in Crowthorne and Wokingham. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. All walks of life. We're one of the biggest installers in the world, in the UK, certainly UK market. Whitney and Tate, they both did their apprentices at ICS.
okay.
Daniel Bennett, global consultant for Cundalls. It's crazy, but I didn't work for him, so I can't call him a mentor, apart from in life, obviously.
What would your bit of advice be to them coming into this to be successful? And secondly, how could they maybe get in touch with you guys or yourself or whatever around what you can give back to them and help them on their journey as well?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice, I always look at it, it's dedication over talent all day long. Someone who wants to work. If you want to work, there's people in our industry that will support you and help you. It is certainly entry point. Construction sites and support sites, high pressure environments, especially when stuff was going wrong. But yeah, my advice is, if you're willing to work, I think you have a great career. If you can, sadly, if you enter our industry at this moment in time and you're average, you will still do well in our industry because there's such a shortage. But if you put the work in, you could have an exceptional career, and it's a rewarding career. It really is. I've got to travel the world through Bit Control. I get to go to some great places through this industry. I love it. I think it's just a credible industry. There's so many clever people, so many entrepreneurs. Yeah, you're tested, you're challenged. I love that. I absolutely love the challenge. I love the bravado that sometimes comes out from people. We've got the BCI Awards, which you're going to come along to. Paul, you'll see everybody in that room and from all walks of life, all different personalities, different types of people. And yeah, it's only going to grow. I don't see it shrinking. We're not in a growth stage, I don't think, even in the construction industry, if you look at the market reports. But our industry keeps growing, and just come along for the ride. That's what I would say. It would be fun.
Yeah, and And I'm assuming that, BMSI will be looking along the way. There's more people to help them, so is that something people can just get in touch with BMSI directly, or what's the
Definitely,
best route?
you can visit our website, bmsi.co.uk. There's a careers section on that website with all our live vacancies. The apprenticeship scheme will be going on there really quickly. We're just talking to one university and a couple of technical colleges around putting
Okay.
some more structured schemes in place. The BCIA run a fantastic apprenticeship with Horizon, a group Horizon, and called the Trailblazer. And we've got engineers going through that process as well. But it's we want to capture the guys who are a little bit older as well.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Chris, look, it's been an absolute masterclass on the reality of the industry. And we've talked a lot of, about the challenges on technology and stuff. But what I've loved here is hearing your candid approach, but even more so, not just about tech, but it's about the people. It's about how you collaborate. It's how you make a difference and how you make stuff happen. And you've only got that from the number of years you've been doing this and learning it along the way, which you've been very open with. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. And for everybody else, this is what, building out from, you've heard the journey, you've heard the story, you've seen what's feasible, what's possible from Chris's own story. I would encourage you to reach out to Chris on LinkedIn, connect into BMSI. They're doing some great stuff in the industry. You want to hear more, you want to be part of that journey, get in touch with these guys. They're more than happy to share. Chris, it's been fantastic to have you today. I look forward to catching up soon. Thank you again for today. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Paul. Thanks a lot.